Hello, everybody. Chip Towers here of Dog Nation, back with you again for our weekly installment of Towers Take, brought to you by Marco's Pizza. Marco's Pizza, America's #1 pizza company. There's one near you, there's one near me, and they make awesome pizza. And as I found out last week, pretty doggone good cinnamon squares too. They come to you hot, and they give you the icing to spread out on them. It's pretty freaking good. So we're back here for a half hour. I'm here to take your questions. Go to the Dog Nation Facebook page, and you should be able to comment on there. I'll be able to read your comments, and we'll take your questions from there. Several of you have already gotten on there. There's my weekly, forget to turn the volume down. Isn't that great? What would it be like if I remembered to keep that volume turned down? Hello, Jerome Nottingham. We've got Darian Ford is in the house. Danny Tucker is here. Yeah, YSRAYL. He says Georgia's got that 7-star prospect now. I'm sure they do. I'm making Arian Block hungry. Cindy Gatlin Edwards is in the house, like her little paws there for the Bulldogs, I imagine. And anyway, on and on. Let me. Carlos Cordoza is here, as he always is. He does a great time. He does a great job of doing that. Thanks for watching. So anyway, so we're transitioning out of the season. What a season it was. 2017 was amazing. It'll be a season that I never forget. I'm sure you guys won't either. Kind of multitasking here, looking at a lot of electronic devices, getting phone calls and text as we speak. We're starting to transition out of the football season and into the postseason, or into the off season rather. And that means a lot of different things right now. My editor, Daniel Shirley, wanted me to already have it posted, but I'm actually running a little bit behind on that. We're doing an NFL draft series. We're going to profile, Seth and I are going to profile, all the NFL draft prospects that the Bulldogs are putting out, which is quite a few, as you could imagine. And I'm profiling Roquan Smith first. That will be up later this evening, unless Daniel decides to push it to tomorrow. I was talking to Shaquana Thomas, Roquan Smith's mother, briefly right before we went on, and she was unable to talk at that moment, but was supposed to call me back. So, hello, Charles Winslet. Thank you, Carlos Cardoza says he saw me on the Paul Feinbaum show, which I believe yesterday. Lately, because Georgia had such a run this season, it seems like I've been on there once a week. But that, I do think Paul does a great job. I've known Paul since he was, just doing radio in Birmingham, wherever he was before that too, I think. But I do think the SEC Network and Paul does a great job of sort of representing all the fan bases and talking to all those people. And so, pardon me for tilting my head down here. Is where I'm looking at your comments. Kevin Jones talks about being a great year and his heart is still broke. James Crump wants to know any breakout secondary players this offseason. That's going to be real interesting to see, James. I'm glad you bring that up. Georgia's secondary is going to be really interesting to watch. Now, actually, it really didn't occur to me till I was talking to Paul yesterday and working on a column I wrote earlier this week on what a big job that Kirby Smart and the staff have. It's just how much Georgia loses off that defense. 9 in all starters. 6 of the 7 of Georgia's terrific front 7. Now, obviously, Georgia rotated like mad on that side of the ball, and in the front 7 in particular. Not so much in the secondary. But Jonathan Ledbetter is the only of those 7 that is returning now. That's counting Trent Thompson as starting ahead of Tyler Clark, which actually wasn't the case most of the time. But I think most of us can agree that that Trent Thompson was probably the #1 among their defensive tackle options there. Though he played less and he rotated heavily with Tyler Clark, he is a special individual. And then the back end, again, to get to your point, James, of the secondary, that's going to be really interesting. Now, the thing is, a lot of people are focused on who Georgia is signing in this class, and rightly so. And Jeff Sentell every Wednesday night goes in great detail about that. And Georgia has some great defensive backs that they are recruiting that are in this 2018 class. But it's really a lot of those guys that are coming back that didn't play that much this past season that are really going to be the ones that you probably get your contributions from. You know, guys like Amir Speed. You know, guys like all those guys that were redshirted this year are going to be the ones who are your primary contributors in the defensive secondary, and it's just going to be a matter of seeing who develops back there. I think, you know, obviously you have J.R. Reed is going to be back, and numerous other players. Let's see here. DeAndre Baker, obviously. I don't know why I couldn't remember his name. That's a good place to start. But certainly in Aaron Davis and Dominique Sanders, man, you are losing so much experience, just so much experience. You know, I don't know if those guys were world class or even all conference, but you know, and certainly Dominique Sanders had a breakdown on that last play in the championship game. So did Malcolm Parrish, another very experienced guy. But, you know, he and Aaron Davis, the number of games, Seth broke it down in a story earlier that those two guys played in was incredible. Hello, Tom Skinner, Kevin Jones. You know, Kevin, I am going to stay away from the D'Angelo Gibbs question right now because I don't know, okay? I know, so J.R. Reed tells me during the championship game media day that his cousin will be back. You know, this next year he's fine and he will be back. I don't know that for 100%. Seth is chasing it down pretty hard. I'm sure Jeff Sentell is looking into it. We're not getting any straight answers on it, and that's the truth. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, we're not getting any straight answers on it. You know, nobody's answering the phone. Nobody's talking about it, so we'll see. Now, D'Angelo Gibbs could figure prominently into this secondary situation if he is, in fact, 100% healthy mentally and physically and can play. I don't think there's any question. He's a great player. He's a great recruit. And he was actually contributing a whole lot in spring practices and early enrollee last year. You know, we'll just have to see where it goes from there. Yeah, I love the Devontae White. Matt McKinney brings this up. I'm eager to see how Devontae White does. Devontae White's one of those guys that I went down and profiled for the Next Generation last spring. I can't remember. I went and saw him down there. I met him not at Towers High School, but at the other school. Towers High School, I think, is where he played his ball, but he had transferred to the other school. He's a great player. Went to junior college. Obviously, he was able to get his grades in order in just a semester of junior college, and now he's at Georgia and already enrolled and was practicing with the team for the bowl game for the it's not bowl games, for the playoffs, and did a good job. Yeah, William Poole is James Crump is bringing up. Said he didn't hear anything from him on the field. I don't think William Poole played at all. I believe he got redshirted. I don't know that 100%, but I know they're happy with William Poole. He's a guy who can contribute. Y'all keep throwing names out here. I did not. I literally put the phone down and turned around and set up my stuff. So I really, you know, didn't peruse the depth chart before I came on here. A lot of people talking about Richard LeCount, and I do think Richard LeCount is going to, I don't think there's any question he's going to be a major contributor, and I think he's going to be a good player. You know, I think he's got all the instincts. I think he's very similar to Dominique Sanders from the aspect of being quite the ball hawk, quite the athlete that way. He knows what to do once he gets the ball in his hand. If you get a chance, go check out Richard LeCounte's. I guess it's the Huddle video. I don't know how many long returns and catches and things he had, but there were a bunch of them. James Crump here says praying for Gibbs to get better, and I think that's a good tack for a lot of you guys to take if you care about the Bulldogs and care about that man in particular. Something else I wanted to touch on that you guys said in here. Nager Yang, or Nager, I don't know how you pronounce your name, Nager, is talking about DeAndre Walker going to be a beast. Yeah, I think I don't think he got enough credit this past season. DeAndre Walker did a terrific job. I think he might have led all the outside linebackers in sacks. He said with a stat sheet in his hand. Yeah, DeAndre Walker played terrific in the playoffs for sure. Did a terrific job. How come these don't have the defensive stats on there like they normally do? Oh, here we go. Yeah, sacks. Roquan Smith and DeAndre Walker both had 5.5 apiece. And DeAndre Walker's, a lot of his came late in the year in those games. Hello, Mike Mizell is here. Bobby James Cuts. What will the starting lineup for the OL look next year? Bobby James Cut wants to know. I would say definitely Andrew Thomas probably going to make that move from right tackle to left tackle. That's not 100%. I guess it could be Isaiah Wilson. They say he was recruited here for that reason. But it's one of those situations where it doesn't always, just because you have 5 stars and you're rated number 3 in America, doesn't mean that you're going to come to college and start. Perfect example between Andrew Thomas and Isaiah Wilson is just the level of skill that Andrew Thomas had as opposed to Isaiah Wilson was somewhat predictable. I went up there and visited Isaiah Wilson in Brooklyn, New York, and got kind of a look at the scene, and he was a giant, giant of a man playing prep school football. So whoever he played against, he was just pushing around, and, predictably, Andrew Thomas was much more fundamentally sound. He had a really good staff over there at Pace Academy, and they're so dependent on technique when you move up to this level. And Andrew Thomas just had picture-perfect technique, along with great athleticism. I think Isaiah Wilson, there's no question, he's a great-looking athlete. He's a huge man, bigger than Ben Cleveland even. So anyway, but I would see Isaiah probably breaking in on right tackle. That's a typical start. And look, replacing Isaiah Wynn is not going to be a small thing. I've actually seen some NFL draft projections of him maybe sneaking into the late first round as a guard. I'd be surprised that actually happens, but he did get a projection like that. Isaiah Wynn did. So that's going to be interesting to see, but it's not automatic that you're going to be better at left tackle, whether it's Andrew Thomas or Isaiah Wilson or DeMarcus Hayes or any of those guys. Left guard's going to be really interesting. You got Solomon Kinley ended up not starting, ended up playing behind Ben Cleveland the last half. He could certainly be inserted at left guard, possibly. Kendall Baker will be back. He did a good job there, but at times was a liability, as was Lamont Gilliard. I think Lamont Gilliard is a great player and a good center, but he had a tough time in the national championship game against Tehran. Whatever the kid's name is, the nose guard for Alabama. He had a tough time against that guy. But otherwise, I think either Ben Cleveland, starts again at right guard, or he moves back out to right tackle, where he worked a whole lot this season and was basically your backup right tackle as well. So, and Andy Beard talking about Ben Cleveland look overwhelmed by Bama. And I thought Georgia's interior line struggled with Bama the whole time. I mean, Bad calls, no question, but Georgia was really struggling with the interior defensive line throughout the game, but particularly in that second and third quarter when Georgia started losing control a little bit. That was a little bit of a problem. Let's see. Benevolent Zeus comes in here. I'm late, and I'm certain this is coming up. But did UGA just get a new 5 stars? I can't verify that for you. So check back to Dog Nation. Absolutely, Jeff Suntel will have that covered for you. Alan in Treakin wants to know, do you think tight ends will be more involved with the passing game in the coming year? We have the talent, Alan says. You know, that's kind of a refrain that, you know, we've heard a lot, and I think it falls in the category probably of the fullback at Georgia is just going to be less utilized under this Kirby Smart regime than it was the previous regime. I think that Georgia is loaded at tight end in between Isaac Nala and Charlie Warner and Jackson Harris and the guy they got coming in. They're going to be in great shape, and they will certainly throw to him some, but I don't think they're ever going to be a primary target again along the ways that they used to be. James Crump points out, don't forget about Justin Schaefer. You can't forget about Notori Johnson. I mean, Georgia's really recruited well at that position the last couple of years, and including in this 2018 class. The guy whose name I can't pronounce wants to know: do you think we have a chance to win a national championship with Fromm at quarterback? Or do you think Fields give us a better chance? Oh, I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's any question that Jake Fromm's going to be your quarterback. I got asked this question the other day on radio. Where was it? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. You know, about the competition next year. Obviously, Jacob Eason transferring. We think it's Washington, though his father specifically said that they weren't the source telling people Washington, and that has not been announced yet. But makes a lot of sense to me if that is where he goes. But obviously, you would be better off with Jacob Eason on your roster. And now it's going to be Justin Fields and Jake Fromm, and it will also be Stetson Bennett. And listen, don't scoff at Stetson Bennett. I can't remember a time where I've heard more talk about the walk-on backup quarterback than I did this past year from Stetson Bennett running the scout offense for the Bulldogs. He's smallish, but he really gave them fits every week, from what I understand. Gave Georgia's very good defense fits every week running scout. He's great at RPOs, which is what Georgia's defending all the time. And but back to Fromm and Justin Fields. Look, Justin Fields is going to play. I think it'll be handled kind of like Georgia was going to handle Fromm in the season, in that you will completely get him ready to play. And I think you will, in fact, have a Justin Fields package ready to go. Hello, Ken Blankenship. Good to see you here. And Ken wants to know whether Kirby will have an issue with platooning quarterbacks. I don't think he will, but I don't think he does, but I don't think he will. I think Jake Fromm's the man. I think we all saw that this past season. What he did, it may be years before we fully appreciate how well Jake Fromm played and what a difference he made in that position. I personally think he made a lot of difference, and that's not a small thing. So that's a lot of ground for Justin Fields to make up, coming in as an early enrollee to be able to overtake Jake. But that said, I think Justin Fields and Jake Fromm are very different quarterbacks. From what I saw from Justin Fields in college, he has a great arm, but he was primarily a runner. I mean, it was his legs that made all the difference. And I think you can certainly put a package in for him, have him ready to go in case anything happens with Jake Fromm. He will study just as hard and be gotten ready just as hard as Jake Fromm would be week to week in the game. But I think the game plan will be in Jake Fromm's hands. And barring injury and a special package for Justin Fields, that will be how that breaks down. And I'm sure Georgia's recruiting like crazy another quarterback at this point. Yeah, Maurice Carter points out it's funny people don't think Prom will get beat out by Fields, but that was the same thing that they said about Easton getting beat, and that's true. Crazier things have happened, but but also Jacob Easton didn't lead Georgia to the national championship game, and Jake Fromm did, so it's a little bit different. Fields can make all the throws. I'm very impressed with Fields' arm, but having the arm and being able to make the throws, but making the throws are a different thing when it comes to taking what the defense is giving you and that kind of thing. Let's see. Chad Phelps. Hello, Chad. How you doing? Chad talks about that Fromm can throw the deep ball. Hurts couldn't throw the deep ball. Yeah, so this is kind of devolving into a quarterback discussion, isn't it? Andy Beard wanting a punter update. I mean, I can give you one. Georgia signed Jake Camarda in the early period. Jake is from Norcross and the #1 rated kicker punter in the country, I believe. I think the place kicking job is in good hands in Rodrigo Blankenship's feet. But I would imagine that's not the way Kirby's going to play it, and I would imagine there'll be a competition for the place kicking duties, but primarily Jake Camarda will be here to compete with Marshall Long for the punting duties. Marshall Long got a redshirt year this past year, and so he'll be able to come back. He is on scholarship after all, came to Georgia on scholarship. I assume he's still on scholarship, though I can't swear to it. Those are one-year renewals after all, but I would imagine Marshall Long and Jake Camarda will compete for the punting duties. #1 rated punter, Ken Blankenship points out, and Ken Blankenship would know. So, yeah, if you look at Jake Camarda's kicking stats from Norcross this past year, they're not that great. They're just 5 of 10. I think he was in field goals, but they had 2 kickers there. And their coach, Keith Maloof, told me, and I was asking him about that stat, and I believe he said that every kick that Camarda attempted this year was over 50 yards. They used the other guy for the shorter field goals, Dallas wants to know if this is the best recruiting class in history. I would be hesitant to call it that. It's such a difficult thing to compare class to class, and certainly when you look over the years, recruiting classes have changed a lot. There were some great ones. I wrote about this. I'm trying to remember what it was. There have been some really good recruiting classes in different years. I think that 2006 class was really, really good. That included Matthew Stafford and a bunch of others, maybe Noshawn Moreno and some others. That was a really, really good class. I mean, going back to the 1990s, man, even that class, what was it, 90 or 91 that Ray Goff signed that included Andre Hastings and Garrison Hurst, and was Eric Zier also in that class. I mean, that was an incredible class. A lot of great linemen in it. But this is the best one in a long time, for sure. There is a lot of. David Gibby wants to know, do I think Monty Rice steps up in Roquan's place? They need him to. And whether it's Monty Rice or Nate McBride, or one of those other guys, I'm not sure. They'll need somebody to. And, of course, a big question mark at the linebacker position is Natrez Patrick. And we obviously don't know at this point what Natrez Patrick's availability is going to be. I anticipate Natrez Patrick being back for his senior year. I imagine there's a scenario where he can come out of treatment and possibly enter the supplemental draft if he wanted to. But I would imagine everything that Kirby and Georgia is trying to do for him will be, kind of contingent upon him coming back. And I would imagine that that he will. And I think that's a big deal for Georgia. I hope Natrez Patrick gets his situation cleared up. He was on the sideline for the national championship game. There's a great picture of Mecole Hardman in the middle of that 80-yard touchdown run, and Natrez sitting there watching it. Very, very, very impressive. Yeah, Sandy Mangus Glenn is talking about just like Ledbetter. I mean, I think Ledbetter's a great story about overcoming those issues and getting them taken care of and being able to come back. Ledbetter coming back is a big deal. Look, Ledbetter could have gone pro too. I mean, not that he would have been a really high draft pick, but I think he could have been one of those steal of drafts. I think he would make an NFL roster, and I like him. Ken Blankenship here. This is his brother, by the way, not his father. Ken lives out in Arizona, I believe it is, and this does some fascinating things. Bird watching out there. Points out Natrez Patrick needs football, and football needs Natrez. He needs to come back and stay out of trouble, and he can be a beast. And I agree with that statement 100%, Ken. And that was kind of the same Saban philosophy when it came to discipline and stuff, that you didn't just want to cut these guys loose when they run afoul of policy, regardless of what the policy said. Based on Georgia's policy, Natrez might in the past have been cut loose, but in this particular scenario, I think Kirby's going to try to bring him back, and we'll just have to see. Yeah, I think Mizell said McBride ought to be better because he was on special. He played a lot on special teams. You saw number 22 out there a lot on special teams. Rhett Dallas points out need more depth at defensive tackle. In my opinion, you can never have enough defensive tackles. Georgia has good defensive tackle depth. There's some guys that you didn't see a ton of this year that I think are very good, like Mikhail Carter. He played a good bit and contributed, but Julian Rochester. I mean, I think Michael Barnett is going to be able to contribute there, and I think they're okay. Jamal Doty wants an update on Gibbs, and we already tackled that in the early minutes. Jamal, so all due respect, we are not going to go any deeper on D'Angelo Gibbs. He is obviously dealing with a situation. We're going to let that play itself out, and we'll report more on that when we have more to report on. A good advice here comes from James Crump, says we just need to pray for Gibbs, and I think that's the best thing. When you're in a kind of a uncertain situation, then you just need to pray. Yeah, but Bobby Mack talking about needing a defensive line. I just, to me, one of the biggest keys to success in the SEC is defensive line. Obviously, offensive line, defensive line. But if you have a great championship caliber and deep defensive front, all possibilities are in front of you. And I think Georgia should be in position to do better. And, talking about next season, Georgia is losing a lot off this team. I wrote about it earlier this week. We're going to have to start wrapping it up. We only got a couple more minutes. I don't think I've gotten my 1-minute warning just yet. But they have a lot to make up. It's if you count specialists at 17 starters that they're losing, 9 on defense. That's counting Trenton Thompson versus Tyler Clark. So you can quibble with that if you like, but it's obviously a massive turnover. But Georgia's schedule, if anybody's looked at the 2018 schedule, it's not overwhelming. Now, I do think those road games at South Carolina and at LSU loom large. You never know what you're going to get with Florida every year. Tennessee is back here, and I think they have a lot of rebuilding to do. But those 2 road games, LSU and South Carolina, loom large. I don't downplay South Carolina. I think they're going to be much improved, and you got to go there. There comes my 1-minute warning. So we have 1 minute. Jesse Lee Kinney finally made it in. He wants to talk some Georgia basketball. Woof woof. Great road win, by the way, by the Hoop Dogs at LSU, and boy, they needed it after that stinker against South Carolina. Now, South Carolina's like playing people, dragging their fingers on the chalkboard, and you could see that coming. But that was not a good loss, and but they kind of made up for it with a nice win on the road at LSU, and they'll need to keep that up to get back into the tournament, which is where they need to be this year, or else I think we'll see. Sean, I'm sorry, Sean Hatcher, but I'm going to leave the recruiting news to Jeff Centel. See ya, Alan in Treakin. James Crump, thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate it. I like Georgia's wide receivers. He was asking me a question about them, but I think it's no small thing that Godwin returning for his senior year. He had opportunities to turn pro, and don't sneeze about Terry Godwin's contribution. Little T is a big deal out there in the wide receiver position. He can give you some snaps at flanker as well, can run that wildcat, and he catches, according to a stat I saw, he was best in the country when it comes to catching the amount of balls that he was targeted for. So, yeah, he's no small thing. You're welcome, Becky Eberhardt Tapley. Tal Whitaker wants to know if there's anything on Zeus. Nothing new. I hear that his recovery should be, of which he would be in the position to play early next season if need be, and no question he'd be ready sometime next season. But whether they need him or not, they obviously have some depth there. That about does it. So I think we can move toward wrapping it up here. Sorry for kind of the short night, but I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. Looks like we had good participation. I will be back next week at the same time for the Marcos, the Tower Steak, brought to you by Marcos Pizza, America's #1 pizza company. Y'all be sure and check them out online. It's real easy to order pizza. Establish your little your bio, your information with Marcos, and you can order it every week. I'm going to turn around and get right back to writing here and get the story up pretty soon on Roquan Smith and his family. I'm supposed to hear back from his mother here shortly, and I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me and for reading Dog Nation. And we got lots of stuff coming for you. Season's over, but Dog Nation rolls on. Good night, y'all.